This is the third and final video on making a glass wave. If you got this far, congratulations. I think you probably did better than most. I'm not sure people even have the patience to watch the video, let alone to make the piece, so good work. Okay, now that you have all your glass wave pieces cut, it's time to cut the mirror. Something to keep in mind is obviously there's a front and back to the mirror. You want to cut on the front side facing you. This particular piece is 6 inches by 6 inches, so I'm going to cut this 12 by 12 into 4 6 by 6 tiles. Obviously, if your frame is bigger or smaller, adjust accordingly. You might have been wondering why you didn't use both sides of the wave pieces that you were cutting, and the reason is it starts to look weird, it's kind of repetitious, so instead just make 2 pieces and give one to your friend. If you think about it, it's kind of sweet. It's like saying you're my other half. Okay, so now your glass is cut and ready to go. The next step is going to be sanding it. Be sure to wear gloves and your dust mask while you're doing this. It produces silica dust that you don't want to breathe in. And also make sure you either do it in a well-ventilated area or outside. And again, make sure you keep all your pieces in order. So the next step after that is going to be cleaning off the dust and all the marker. And you're going to use denatured alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, and make sure you get every corner, every side. It's really important that before you stack the pieces again after cleaning them that they are dry, so either set them out to dry or dry buff them with a rag. Finally, you'll clean the mirror again, and I will say there's almost no way to get the glass too clean, so check it over many times. Get a piece of wax paper and put it on a flat surface up against something heavy and perpendicular. I've used a heavy brick here, and the only modifier I would say is to put a piece of tape on the brick so that when you're gluing, your glass doesn't stick to it. I got lucky and mine did okay. At this stage, you're pretty much ready to go, so you're going to take your first piece and you're going to lean it up against your brick, and then just draw a line with that glass super glue right against the base of the piece of glass. I don't worry too much about making that line of glue perfect or even. This is a water themed piece, so if there are little bubbles that are trapped in there, it's not that big of a deal. What is important is to get that piece lined up nicely, because once that glue hits, it's pretty much just going to stick. And the reason for that wax paper is that that glue is just going to kind of flood over the edges, and you just don't want your piece to stick to anything. And at this point, just keep going until you hit the end. This piece is basically designed so that you can get all your equipment, your tools, your materials at the hardware store, but if you want to use something like a fancier UV glue that's more archival, that's great. That's what I do for my big commissions. And there you have it. Your glass is all ready. It's all glued up and ready for the next stage, which is cleaning and then mounting. The super glue sets only where there's an anaerobic environment, so where 2 pieces are touching. So if there's any excess where the glass is slightly uneven, it's going to want to drip out. So you can put a piece of paper towel down and let it drip out. Be sure to put the glass strips perpendicular to the table and prop it up for about 10 minutes on each side so the glue has a chance to run out. Also be careful when handling this, because if you get the glue on your hands and then you get it on the front of the piece, you're going to have to scrape it off later and it's going to be really annoying. I think I went through about 6 tubes of super glue for this one, and a teacher of mine once said, you can always take the glue off, you can never add it back in. So my approach is to just use more. And now that's set up, it's time to mount this piece to the wood backer that we took apart and painted earlier. I said this in the first video, but it's really important to use the mirror mastic. Other silicones will corrode the mirror surface and mirror mastic won't. As with every other step in this process, you want to make sure your surfaces are clean before you glue anything together. And when I'm applying this mirror mastic, I want to think about how it's going to spread out once I set it on that backer board. So instead of putting that mirror mastic right up against the edge, I've recessed it about an inch. And I'm going to create this kind of zigzag pattern with it. I'm leaving enough room so that when it squishes down, there'll still be a little air gap so that the glue can cure. After going and getting all your materials, cutting all those glass waves, cleaning everything and sanding it, this is probably the hardest part. You have to wait 24 hours once you mount this to the board. I think I take on a lot of projects just so I can distract myself from waiting for the glue to cure. So you can see I've got the backer panel here with the tape all ready. I'm going to go ahead and set that down. You can measure if you don't feel confident in your ability to sight it, and then wrap that tape around the edges and forget about it for a day. Or in your spare time, you can go ahead and get started on sanding and cleaning the other half of the glass that you have sitting around. If you want to get creative and mount your panel in a different frame, you can absolutely do that. This oversized one was sitting on my workbench and I thought it looked pretty cool, but let's go ahead and put the original back together. I'll start by putting the insert on top of the backer board and then putting the frame on top of that whole assembly and then closing the tabs on the back side. Congratulations, you made it through this entire tutorial, and maybe now you have this awesome handmade piece of art.